So I'm pretty sure we would remember this from back in the days. We had this thing we called chew and pour, pass and forget. And this was a system of learning in school where you would cram the night before the exam just to cram as much information as possible. And then on the day of the exam, you just pour it all out. So chew and pour, and then you pass, completely forget it. And this has been a way by which many students, many people have been going about their education. I'm positive maybe that is your story too. I mean, in some situations, yes, for me too. And I mean, I've also had the chance to teach some people at the university level. And I quite remember clearly teaching one time a class, and I was trying to explain the concept behind what I was sharing with them. And surprisingly, they weren't really interested. They were like, just give us the solutions to the questions, and like we'll learn it. Like you don't need to explain it over and over to us. And I was wondering, how would you be able to pass your exams in such a way? But here's the reality of it. This is something that our educational system has kind of taught us. Whereas at times we choose to prioritize retention and reproducing exactly what we have been told on the paper rather than understanding or grasping the concepts behind it. And you may be wondering, why am I talking about this? Because this has gradually seeped into our Christianity and the way we view God and everything. What do I mean by that? We have seen progression or promotion, growth in our education as a result of being able to, pour out how much you can remember concerning a particular question. I mean, we have seen promotion or growth in our education coming about as being able to pass an exam, but the emphasis has not actually been on understanding, because the reason why you are supposed to move from class 1 to class 2 is not just because you pass an exam, but because you understand certain concepts that will now allow you to do well in class 2 or in the next level, if I may say. Translate this concept into our Christianity. If I'm able to tick these boxes, if I'm able to do A, B, C, and D, then I will be rewarded. If I'm able to pass A, B, C, and D, then I'll be rewarded. But we forget that the focus of Christianity is not just about passing a test, which you don't really understand. The goal is to become. The goal is to be transformed from within. And so most of us may be relating with God on a transactional level. Okay. If I'm able to do A, B, C, and D, I am in good standing, I pass. If I'm able to pray enough, I pass. If I'm able to give enough, I pass. If I'm able to do ABC, there's this transactional motive. And here's one problem about transactions. You always try to do the bare minimum. And that's how come you may find yourself in a situation and you are wondering, how close can I get to sin without actually sinning? Because the emphasis is not on becoming as Christ. It's just trying to pass, do the bare minimum. That is not the system God is using at all with regards to us. And I can confidently tell you that isn't the system which God is working with us. Because guess what? He doesn't prioritize our actions over the intent of our hearts. He doesn't prioritize what we do. There are two key areas where I think there's supposed to be this change or transformation. The first one has to do with from duty to intimacy. And what do I mean by that? In Hosea chapter 2, verse 8, it says, you will call me husband, not my master. He says, you will call me husband and not my master. Now, the Hebrew for master here is Baali, which signifies duty or ownership. And the Hebrew word for husband here is Ishi. It's Ishi, which implies intimacy and partnership. So God is trying to say that a time is coming, you are not going to relate to me as master and servant directly, but there will be a kind of relationship that exists between us that is focused on intimacy and partnership. So we are not just trying to do the bare minimum, but we are trying to become as much as in tune with God as possible, if that kind of makes sense. So you notice this, there is this shift from the place of absolute obedience to a place of relational obedience. And by that, I mean a servant obeys because he has to, else there's trouble for him. But in our relationship with God now, it's less of I have to, else I'm in trouble. but more like, I want to because I love you. I want to because of our relationship. So there's that relational obedience. So there's a shift from duty to intimacy, to partnership in that sense. Following that, the other place where I see, or the other level where I see another shift, is from performance to perspective. And I call this the mind shift, because this is looking at not just our performance, that is what we do, but how we think. So, I mean, one of my favorite preachers said this, that she thinks in Bible. And I found it interesting, because what it means is that whenever you are faced with any particular situation, you resort to what the Bible says about this situation. You get it? So it's like, okay, I'm faced with this particular situation. How do I go about it? Well, what does the Bible say about it? So we get to this place where we begin to think in terms of Bible. We see as God sees. We don't condemn people for what they are doing, because we see them as God sees them. We choose to act in a way that is contrary to what is normal, because that is how God would have us act, or that's how God would have dealt with that particular situation. So that is the shift from not just doing, but becoming, having that sense, or having that perspective where you see just as God sees. Just as God sees. Romans chapter 12 verse 2 says, be renewed in your mind, not just your behavior, not just your actions, but in your mind, in your way of thinking. Do not conform to the world's standards, but rather conform to God's standards. So it's like the very core fabric of your convictions about life and the world, everything in general, is bordered on this thing with God. And 2 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 18 also says, we are being transformed into this very image, his very image. 2 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 18 says, we are being transformed into his very image. So we are being changed, not just outwardly, but inwardly. We think as he thinks, we see as he sees, and that is what kind of like propels and pushes us to act in any way that so we want to just close on this one. Imagine this: a child who is beginning to learn how to walk. I mean, there's no set of rules and regulations about how to use this particular muscle in the thigh and how you stand, because these are muscles and stuff we engage to move around and everything. But there isn't that kind of, checklist of, okay, activate this muscle, take this step, do this, do that. But the child looks at how the father walks and tries to emulate it. A child takes a step or two and falls, gets back on his feet, takes a step or two and falls. And guess what? The father does not see the failure of the child as communicating that that is not his son or child, or as communicating that this is not a human being. The father applauds the child and encourages the child, because the goal at the end of the day is for the child to walk like the father. So it applies to our very own life. We walk as we see God walks, and it may happen that there are times we may stumble and fall. But so long as we get up and continue to walk, a time is coming where effortlessly we will be able to represent God completely. We'll be able to walk just as he does, because we would have become so much in tune with him, understanding his ways and his nature, that it becomes our nature and our personal reality. But this is not going to happen if we are so concerned about certain checklists and meeting certain barriers and all of that. I mean, meeting certain standards and all of that, because that takes away the focus from becoming and just on doing. Yeah. This may have been a little bit heavy, but I hope I was able to explain it well. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments. I will be happy to respond to it in the comments, or maybe in a future video. And also like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. This is Caleb Dave, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Keep striding, and peace out.